this isn't going to have a lot of editing because I'm kind of in a hurry, hence why I'm doing this while driving today. So I promised a review of the Sonic animated shows that came out in the 90s, and unfortunately school started up again, so I haven't really had time to do it the way I wanted to, but since I said I'd do it, here it is. So it's going to be off the cuff, and I'm going to be doing it while driving, so it gives it that added element of danger. Alright, anyway. So there are 3 shows that came out in the 90s, all starring Sonic the Hedgehog. Alright, 2 of them came out in 93, and then the third one came out in like 96 or 97. The first one is called Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. The second one is called something with Sonic. It says Sonic the Hedgehog in it too, so that's kind of annoying. And then the third one is called Sonic Underground. Now, these are 3 very different series, and the thing I find most interesting about them is no one is particularly better than the other. And what I mean by that is there's certain things that are good about one that aren't there in the other, and then it happens from series to series that way. So let's start with the first one that came out in 93. This one was Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, and it was really cartoony. It was really like Looney Tunes kind of animation ripoff. And that was fine, because, I mean, it's not like no one's ever ripped off Looney Tunes before. And it was having a lot of fun with the series, and what I think shines through the best about that show was how accurate they were to the visual world of the game. Let me explain that. You look at some of the character designs, particularly of the villains, like Scratch, or not Scratch, but Grounder and Coconuts, and those 2 henchmen characters look exactly like Batniks from the games. Coconuts looks like the monkey that throws coconuts at you from Sonic 2, and Grounder looks like one of the villains, or not one of the villains, one of the bad guys in, I want to say Sonic 3, I can't remember off the top of my head, but he looks a lot like this dude. Anyway, the point I'm making is, like, that's where that show really shined through, is visually it was very much like the games, and story-wise too, in that, you know, they actually stuck to Tails and Sonic being, you know, sidekicks. It's not, they were really very, very much sidekicks. It wasn't Sonic's, you know, this older brother figure or anything like that. Tails was there in practically every episode, helping out along the way, and he was fairly useful. You know, there's obviously the episodes where he gets kidnapped or whatever, and that kind of cliche, but whatever. And it worked. The thing that didn't work about that series was the way that it was very over the top in the wrong ways. You know, Robotnik really had dumb plans, and there's that whole, you know, I'm an evil genius that's really not a genius kind of thing going, and that got annoying, but it's still shown through in fairly good ways, but it didn't take itself very seriously, and a lot of fans were insulted by the nature that it was just, you know, Looney Tunes with a plot, and voice actors. It was Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner with voice actors and a plot, and the thing is, the voice actors aren't great, and the plot isn't that good. Except, of course, the lead voice actor, Jaleel White, who played Sonic. He was awesome, great voice, and actually his voice was considered so good that it stuck through 2 other animated series. That's right, all 3 animated series, they use the same voice actor. And for those of you that don't know who Jaleel White is, that's Urkel. Anyway, so there's that, and that's, like I said, I personally, I remember this one a lot from a videotape I had when I was a kid, because it came out in 93, so I would have been 3 or 4 years old, maybe. So I wouldn't have watched it when it was on TV, or if I did, I wouldn't remember it, but I remember having a videotape with, you know, 1 or 2 episodes on it, and I always really enjoyed that. And looking next one is the one that's probably admired the most. And that also came out in 93, which is weird to have two television shows with completely different tones come out at the exact same time. It'd be like releasing, Batman the Animated Series along with Batman Brave and the Bold. It just doesn't, you wouldn't think to do that. But they did it. And eventually, the first series got canceled in favor of continuing this series and working on it. And this one's pretty good. It's got a very serious plot, and it's a very unique approach to a show in that the bad guy had already won for the most part. Robotnik had taken over the majority of the planet, and that was something I don't think I've seen done before. And so Sonic and his friends are, fighting against this evil robot empire. So it kind of works like the game does in that sense. You always got the sense that Robotnik was pretty powerful in the games, or the early games. And that he had control over the world, or at least parts of it, because he had, all the factories and stuff. Sorry, excuse me. The show didn't work, for me at least, because it did this thing that I call adaptation, well, I don't want to say that. It over-adapted and didn't take enough from the games. It made too much of its own original material in that. And mostly, by that, I mean it had so many original characters, and then the characters from the game are, barely present. And that's annoying. For example, Tails is in this series, but he gets one episode where he actually does something worthwhile, a couple episodes where he's a major plot element, and then most of the time he's just this, 4-year-old that they treat like a child, and it's annoying, because even if, I personally, I don't like Tails that much, but he's a main character. He's in the title card of the second game. He's there throughout the majority of the second game, so he should be a major part of the shows, and he just wasn't in this. He was, barely around in it, and that really was problematic for me. That and, the characters they chose to focus on are annoying, especially the frickin' Anton guy. It's like, oh no, I'm a racial stereotype! Ugh, got stupid. He just constantly, this cowardly French fox, or raccoon, or whatever the hell he was, and it just got stupid. I'm like, he had, several episodes all focused on this stupid fox character that was just this blatant French stereotype of a coward, and it just got boring, and it's like, oh, well, I'm in love with the princess, and even though Sonic never had a princess in it, I'm in love with her, and so is Sonic, and we're both trying to date her, and, this is boring. The plot itself was interesting, the idea of them trying to defeat Robotnik, but I didn't need this royal family aspect to it. I, in fact, would have been more impressed if that was not there, because then they're just doing it because it's the right thing to do, not because they need to regain power. Which they wanted to regain power because it's also the right thing to do, but still, it made it more bland. It made it more of the same stuff, and that was the big problem with that series, is just, it was a very serious, very understandable tone, and it did a lot of interesting things, but a lot of the other things they did got really bland and really boring. Then there was this really weird change, right in the middle of the series, just the animation style completely changes for one episode. Just one episode, all the character designs except for Sonic and Tails kinda, except for Sonic and Tails, all the character designs completely change, and Tails, he gets a bit of a lighter color, because he was brownish orange, but they made him more yellowish orange. But seriously, every single character design changes for one episode. And then after that one episode, the Walrus guy, this Walrus character that was like their tech guy or whatever, their Q, if you will, he's the only one that, like, they keep changing his character design after that episode. Like, he was purple, and then gray, and then, like, light grayish blue, and it kept changing. You know, every couple episodes they changed his visual look, so it got really weird. And that was, of course, annoying. But it was so, like, drastic. There was nothing to ease you into it, and then there was nothing to ease you out of it. It just happened. And I'm sorry about the camera shake. Anyway, it just happened out of nowhere. Robotnik in that series, however, was awesome. He's just so damn evil in that show. It was great. And he's like, this just fat mess sitting back in this chair and just destroying the planet for his own needs. It was perfect. It was like the best I've ever seen that character done. And it was just so cool, and he had, like, great lines like, oh yes, that warms my metallic heart. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. So he was great, and he's actually came through as a genius on that show. You know, the things he would come up with seemed really clever, like, just genuinely clever things. Like, there was this episode where they were searching for some people in caves, but the caves were, like, kind of high up, and Robotnik goes, they're hiding the entrances to the bottom caves. Blast them open. And, like, I never would have thought of that. And it came out of nowhere. It was a genuinely clever thing. I mean, obviously they wrote it that way, but it was still genuinely clever as a viewer. And that was just one of the many things he did in that show. It was interesting, it was smart. He had a lot of really good, intricate, laid out plans that just worked really well, and it was very believable. He was a very believable villain, and he was obviously very power hungry, and he was getting what he liked, and that was great with it. His sidekick Snively, he was okay as comic relief, but he got a little annoying from time to time. I could have done without him. He wasn't a huge damper on the show, but where the show really does fall apart is, like I said, it doesn't stay to the games at all. I mean, it takes the Sonic, and it takes Robotnik, and it takes Tails, kind of. I'll be fair, they were setting up Tails, because the episode I mentioned where he actually does something important, they were setting him up for maybe a second season where he was going to be a more important, more central character, but that's no excuse to not making him an important central character in the first season. Because that's the only season they got. But, I don't know, it was meh. Alright, so then there's the third series, Sonic Underground. I remember this series the most, and I wish I hadn't watched it again, because I really had fond memories of it, and it's pretty bad. Don't get me wrong, I still really enjoy it. It was a lot of fun to watch, and once you got past the songs, that's right, there are songs in it. Once you got past the songs, it's actually pretty well done, though still a little cliche. Well, still a lot cliche. So the basic plot of this one is essentially the exact same as the plot of the second one, of the second series. You know, Robotnik took over the planet, and you know the people are fighting against him, you know, as an underground resistance. But instead of Sonic helping the princess, Sonic is a prince, and he has two siblings. Sonya and Manic. Get it? Sonic, Get it? Because they're all variations of his name. Anyway, Sonya and Manic. And they all play instruments that double as weapons, and there's a little bit of weird inconsistency with exactly how these things are shaped, because sometimes Sonya has a gun, and as her piano, and other times it's like a rifle, and it's weird. The thing about this show is I watched it on Netflix, and I really got it in a disjointed continuity, and that kind of bugged me. Well, it really bugged me, because about 2/3 of the way through the series, all the episode titles changed, or not the titles, all the title cards on the episodes changed to Spanish. And there's obviously, episodes completely out of order. Like, I watched an episode, and then the very next episode was obviously supposed to take place before that one. So it got really, really annoying. I mean, I'm used to non-linear storytelling enough that I can put it together exactly how it was supposed to happen, but it doesn't change the fact that it was very unsatisfying to watch something knowing exactly what was going to happen, because I just watched the episode beforehand but completely confused about how it is we got to where we are. That being said, what this series did well was it took the things that people liked about both series and tried to combine them. Something that really stuck with people, I'm guessing, from the first animated series was this henchman duo for comic relief, and they had that in Sonic Underground. And then what people liked about the second series was this more serious tone, the darker world, and the struggle of Sonic and his friends, as opposed to Sonic just easily defeating Robotnik at every turn like he did in the first series. So we got those two things, and it kind of works. I mean, it's the henchmen are kind of funny and clever at times, a little annoying in some episodes. There was a really interesting dynamic that I hadn't really seen before, was cop car. There's a really interesting dynamic that I hadn't seen before, which was one of the henchmen was in love with Sonia, Sonic's sister. And I've never seen that done before, and they played it up really well for laughs and for plot elements, and they got a lot of mileage out of it. I hadn't really seen that done in the show before, so that was interesting. This series really suffers from the 90s, let's coin a couple catchphrases thing. And so you gotta roll your eyes at some of the things they end up saying in this. It's no Street Sharks with, shark attack, but you get a little tired if you're in Sonic, say, way past cool, and let's juice and loose or whatever. It gets really annoying. But overall, it's alright. So Sonic Underground, the biggest problem they have is they tried to introduce this whole musical element to it. And literally in every single episode, the three main characters sing a song and play instruments. And in some episodes, it's fine, because guess what? You can fast forward right through it. It doesn't matter at all. But in other episodes, it's actually tied into the plot of the episode. So if you don't watch the song segment, you're not going to have any idea what the hell's going on or how they got out of this situation that they're in before they started singing. So that gets really annoying, because you kind of have to watch the songs. And it's, they obviously got different voice actors to do the songs from time to time. And that's, they make, no attempt to, synchronize their voices correctly. So it got really annoying. Another thing that the show did, 2 or 3 times was make the 3 main characters into, that plot element where someone looks exactly like a god to tribal people, so they worship them as a god? They did that, 2 or 3 times. Where, the main characters look exactly like these statues, or look exactly like this god or whatever that people worship from these native tribes around the planet. And the first time, okay, whatever, I mean, you can do that plot. But when you do it 2 or 3 times, it's that's annoying. I mean, are these guys really sacred gods or what? I mean, it got out there. didn't enjoy that aspect of it, I guess, is what I'm getting at there. It got annoying. It's part of a larger problem, which is that the series really bordered on cliche quite often. Not bordered. This series crossed the line into cliche quite often, and that's probably its biggest problem, if we're not counting the music. Trying to think what else there is to say about that show before I really summarize all of them. What that show did well, compared to the other two, is it managed to actually find a good blend of comedy and serious tone, because while I was annoyed from time to time by some of the, recurring characters and stuff like that, I was much less annoyed by them than I was by the Fox Antoine and some of the stupid, just, played over and over again jokes in the second series. And I was much more invested in the darker tone in that one than I was, or in the tone in that one than I was in the first series. One episode, and it's probably my favorite, I was so surprised that they did it, and that they actually managed to do it fairly well, was this episode called Sonia's Choice. And yes, that is a play on Sophie's Choice, the famous novel movie where a woman has to choose which one of her children to let live, because the Nazis are going to kidnap, or going to kill one and let the other one live, and they make the mother choose. It's a famous novel made into a movie. I think it was based on a real event. Alright, so the show sets up that similar scenario, and they call it Sonia's Choice. And what happens is Manic and Sonic are both kidnapped and kept on opposite ends of the city, and she has to try to go save one of them. She's only going to have time to save one. I was so surprised when I saw them starting to build this up in the episode. I was like, no way. You're not good enough. Don't go there. But then they actually did it, and the way they resolve it was fairly impressive. I obviously would have liked it more if the negative had happened and one of them did die. But they're not going to do that. Damn it. But it was fairly well done. I was fairly impressed by the way in which they executed it. So it could have been significantly worse, is what I'm getting at. I don't know, it was probably my favorite episode. It was really well done. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to say before I summarize them. And I guess not. Like I said, these shows, they do some things better. Each series does one thing better than the other series did. The first series' biggest strength is its closeness to the video games. The second series' biggest strength is the way the tone is very serious. And the third series' biggest strength is the way it's able to actually blend a good amount of comedy with a good amount of serious drama. And then they each have their faults. The first series is that it cannot be taken seriously, and that you're not threatened by the villain at all, because he's just easily defeated, as easily as Wile E. Coyote. Maybe even more so, which is quite sad. And then the second series, it just gets annoying because they try to add this comic relief and it just doesn't work, because it's overplayed and it's overdone and it's not funny. And then the third series' biggest problem is, of course, the music. I don't know who thought we need to have them do a song in every episode. Because, God, that just got so annoying, and it made me wish I hadn't watched this series again because I remembered it so well. Oh, as far as closeness to the video game goes, while the third series, Sonic Underground, didn't have Tails in it, they actually introduced Knuckles, and he was used fairly well. For what was out with Knuckles at the time, they could have done much worse. They actually did a pretty good job of getting that, mistaken enemy between Sonic and Knuckles down, and the two had a really good competition going, a really good rivalry. So it worked pretty well in that. But yeah, that's all I got. There's the review. 200 videos. What?